We're live, Mayor by votes.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the 75th meeting of the 7th Council Municipality of South Dundas. Tonight we are having a public meeting to discuss 4 zoning bylaw amendments. At Council's pleasure, the bylaw section we will defer to March the 8th. That will allow more time for public comments. It seems that these amendments have generated enough public interest that there will be a little extra time before the bylaws are passed to send more comments in. If council is okay with that. Okay, seeing no no negative, I will first call on the clerk for a roll call, please.
Good evening. Mayor Byvelds?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Here.
Councillor Lewis?
Here.
Councillor Mellon?
Here.
Councillor Wells?
Here.
CAO Garrity?
Here.
Director Lowy?
Here.
Planning Consultant Reed?
Here.
Deputy Clerk Robert?
Here.
Also joining us tonight are members of the public to be introduced as they speak to the zoning bylaw amendment of their interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof this evening? Okay, then we'll have the motion to open public meeting, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Lewis, that the public meeting to consider zoning bylaw amendments be opened at 6:02 p.m.
All heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed if any, motion carries. So I have a statement here to read concerning tonight's meeting. So I now declare the public meeting held by the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas under sections 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act be thereby opened. There are 4 zoning bylaw amendment applications being considered this evening. One dealing with cannabis, one dealing with short-term rentals, one dealing with signs, one dealing with additional residential units. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of or contrary to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments will be given the opportunity to do so. Before you make a presentation, I would ask that you provide your name and address. I'm required by the Planning Act to advise you that if you do not make an oral presentation tonight or a written submission before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by municipal council, or you will not be entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. I'm also required to advise you that if you do not make an oral presentation tonight or a written submission before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted by municipal council, you may not be added to as a party to any hearing of any appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal. I will now call on our municipal planning consultant, Aaron Reed, to provide a brief overview for each application. Following the overview for each file, we will open the floor to anyone wishing to make an oral presentation on the specific application. I would like everyone to be respectful of others. This is not a debate with council, staff, or those who are speaking. Please keep this in mind tonight. With that, I will call on the first zoning bylaw amendment to be considered tonight. Deals with cannabis growing in South Dundas. So Aaron, welcome tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. All right, good evening. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to explicitly address cannabis cultivation and processing facilities in the zoning bylaw. So in 2018, recreational cannabis became legal in Canada. Bill C-45, known as the Federal legal framework under which production, distribution, sale, and possession of cannabis for both medical and non-medical purposes is regulated within Canada. Based on review of various provincial policy, cannabis is considered an agricultural use. As such, the cultivation of cannabis, we are encouraging it to be permitted as an agricultural use. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment does provide a definition for cannabis processing facility, as a processing facility does meet the industrial definitions of the Municipality of South Dundas zoning bylaw. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment also provides specific provisions related to a cannabis processing facility. These are going to be provided in the general provision section of the zoning bylaw. So these include permitting cannabis processing facilities as an accessory use to an agricultural use. It also implements a 300-meter setback from any sensitive land use. It provides that all processing facilities be equipped with approved air treatment control, that all storage be in a fully enclosed building, and that all development in relation to the establishment or expansion of a cannabis processing facility be subject to site plan control. It also explicitly permits cannabis processing facilities in the light industrial and general industrial zones. I do want to note that it also includes a definition for air treatment control. So since the report was provided to council, we've received a number of comments from the public. So I am going to address a few of those comments now prior to the members of public in attendance speaking tonight. We've received approximately 7 comments concerning the facility located at Flag Road and County Road 2. These comments do note concern with odor and request that there be buffer zones be implemented in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and strict regulations regarding ventilation. I do feel like the proposed zoning bylaw amendment does address these concerns with regards to odor by implementing an air treatment control and having that required in a processing facility. It will help mitigate some of the odor impacts of a cannabis processing facility. Also, by having a 300-meter setback, this does provide a great setback from this industrial use to sensitive land uses, and sensitive land uses do include residential uses. I do want to note that the setbacks have by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, which do have a series called the D6 series guidelines. So these provide various separation distances from an industrial use to a more sensitive land use. So they have 3 different classes, 1, 2, and 3. Class 2 provides, I believe it's a 70-meter setback, and Class 3 being the most extensive one, providing that 300-meter setback, and that's what is being recommended. We also received a comment about individuals of the public being informed when a company has requested a permit for a cannabis processing facility. And I do want to note that licenses are provided by Health Canada, so they would have to reach out to Health Canada to receive any of that information. We've also received just general comments about what the proposed amendment will include, and they've been provided with an overview of this amendment. Most of the comments do relate to the odor and the distance from a residential use. So I'll now bring it back to council if you have any questions.
Okay, first I will go through council for asking any questions or comments or concerns concerning the public part of the meeting. So Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. We had a pretty thorough discussion about this back in November. I am aware that is one of the main issues with this. And, you know, in that discussion, we had talked about, I read some of the comments, and we had talked about, you know, different government and what they're responsible for, and also any of the enforcement that goes along with it. So Aaron, just a quick question. In your research, you were mentioning that Health Canada is the one who issues the license. Mm-hmm. So just, you know, throughout this process, I was surprised at that as well. So we really are just issuing the permits around the building use, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We are providing regulations and provisions regarding the location and how sites are developed, but not actually limiting or saying yes or no, you can do it or not. That is up to Health Canada to provide that permit. If it meets our zoning, then from a municipal's perspective, it can be done. And these provisions are really just to provide the municipality with some more regulations regarding cannabis facilities.
Yeah, perfect. And then the other question was, actually, it's more of a comment, but the moment that the federal government legalized cannabis, it did become a crop, essentially, correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's considered a legal agricultural crop.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Council Wells, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I like what we're offering, I think, as far as the new setbacks and stuff like that. I did have one question for Aaron. Now, if this bylaw does go through, is it safe to say that the flag row wouldn't have to comply with the new thing because they were already established, or would they?
Thank you. As it was a pre-existing building, these provisions of the zoning bylaw will not apply. It is grandfathered in. From my understanding, the municipality is doing some work with the landowner and their engineers to help that property comply with the zoning bylaw. But in terms of these specific provisions for cannabis, because it's pre-existing, they will not apply unless they alter the site in the future.
I read that in the report. I just want to let the public know that hopefully, like I say, if they're working with us now, that the main issue is the odor. And I've been there by myself and I smelled it. So hopefully all we can hope for at the end of the day is if they will comply with the odor part of it and work to resolve their problem with whatever it takes, the filter system and that. So that's about all for me now, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I could speak to that as well.
Go ahead.
Just to let you know, Councillor Wells, we have been working with the engineers on the Flag Road property. They have been in consultation with mechanical engineers to address the modifications to the HVAC systems. There's roughly 20 units that were installed there without a permit, so that's where we're discussing that with them, is under the Building Code Act. Once they apply for a new building permit, our zoning provisions at that time will have to be met. So unless they get their building permit application in prior to this zoning bylaw going through, they will have to meet those provisions.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah.
Council Lewis?
No, I was going to ask the same question as Councillor Wells on the 300 meters, because I wanted to make sure that the public did understand that they were there before we started with our bylaw or our zoning bylaw. So thank you very much, Aaron and Nicole.
Council Mellon?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bybel. You know, the one thing that's always sort of bothered me is when they block cannabis under agriculture. Being a farmer, that just sort of burns my goat a little bit, but we won't go into that. I guess a couple of questions. Would greenhouses, if you will, would they need odor control methods or whatever on a greenhouse? Or would that just be for industrial zone land? Or would that be on agricultural zone land also, the odor control on greenhouses?
Aaron?
Yes, hello. I might pass that one over to Nicole. I believe that it would still require the air treatment control if it's for a processing facility.
Nicole?
Hi, Councillor Mellon. So the greenhouses that are larger production greenhouses definitely need to meet those odor control systems. But if they're just growing, that's not a production operation, so they wouldn't need to have that. So for instance, the Rowena Road they just use those greenhouses for growing, so there's no requirement for the air treatment control.
But the odor still comes off them while they're growing. It's not just when they're being processed. When they get to the plants get to a certain stage, that's when the stink starts coming off them. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's why we're proposing that 300-meter setback. That's pretty substantial. If you look at the Flag Road property, that building would have to be further away from the corner of County Road 2 and Flag Road to meet that 300-meter setback. So it currently doesn't meet that, but I understand where you're coming from. Similar to a dairy operation where they meet MDS, the province hasn't come out with requirements for cannabis under MDS because it's just a plant similar, well, you could say similar to a tomato plant, but yeah.
Yeah, well, not quite. Yeah, not quite.
Yeah.
Also, is there any way we can put into a light, directing light away, or is there anything in this zoning? I didn't see it, especially on a greenhouse where I've drove by some big ones just across from Cumberland, and they have like curtain system. Is there anything in this bylaw that would maybe make it mandatory that they would have to have lighting or like curtains to darken, to keep the ambient lighting or whatever you call that, so it's not, lighting up the sky?
So that would not be addressed under our zoning bylaw amendment. It would actually be covered under our property standards bylaw that will be coming in the near future, again, for a draft to council.
Okay, that's good. Also, if would the one on Rowena, since it was put there or somewhat illegally, I'm hoping they're not grandfathered in. If a permit through Health Canada or a permit through us was obtained, if you will, with incorrect information, or they were found to be not in compliance or illegal operation, would that null and void their ability to set up shop again?
So I believe the greenhouses on Rowena have been damaged since the OPP one on the property. If they wanted to repair those greenhouses, they would need a new building permit. At that point, we would trigger zoning bylaw as applicable law. So they'd have to meet the same requirements that we have at that time. So if they didn't need to repair those greenhouses, they would be grandfathered in technically.
Okay. Also, there's been brought to my attention, and it's a legitimate concern, especially in some areas where there might be issues with groundwater and surface water, and the availability of groundwater and surface water. Do they? What organization? What governing body would, if you will, license, if there is such a thing, for water to be taken? And is there control on that, especially in areas that have questionable well water, now depth that they have to go? Is there any mechanism in there, or how can that be?
Yeah, so any concerns with well water or infiltration, it would be covered under the Ministry of Environment. So I know on Rowena, we did reach out to the Ministry of Environment because several residents had concerns about contaminated water or their well water being drained from their property going into the cannabis property. They did have a representative from MOE on site, and they did do an investigation. I'm not sure what resulted from that because OPP kind of took over, but Ministry of Environment would be the governing body on that.
we relate this anyway so that they would have to have that approval before they could get a new building permit, or they would be, they could be in compliance with any zoning amendment we put out. Make sure that, all their i's are dotted or t's are crossed, so they don't go ahead and do something and then, go proactive and get somebody else to give them approval. Can this be sort of set up that way?
Yeah, I think we can introduce a provision for water sources on the property under zoning. Typically that's dealt with through building permits, but because an agricultural greenhouse wouldn't need a separate well technically, if they're not installing a new one, then we wouldn't have to ask for any requirements to be met under the building code. So it would definitely be something that we'd have to bring forward as a condition of site plan control.
Okay, I think that's all I have. Thank you, Nicole and Aaron. That's all I have for now, Mayor Byvelds.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn the meeting over to our Deputy Mayor Robert to go through the public comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds. The first individual we have providing comments is Joanna Cronstel. Joanna, you can unmute and provide your comments to council.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, yep. Thanks, Joanna.
Hi, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. I just have a couple of questions concerning the Flag Road operation. I understand that you're saying that some of these codes are not applicable to them, if I'm understanding this correctly, because they've been grandfathered in. So I'm just wondering how that works if this is a new product that was formerly illegal. How is that grandfathered in to the current agricultural zoning laws?
I can speak to that. Thank you, Joanne. So the Flag Road property previously applied for a change of use under the Ontario Building Code. We did do an inspection with the building department and the fire department and determined that construction happened on the property without a permit. So at that time, they were advised that they needed to apply for a building permit. And under the building code, the Planning Act is considered applicable law. And for them to get a building permit, they have to meet our current zoning bylaw. So far, we haven't received an application for a building permit for that property. We've just been in contact with the engineers, advising them on what they need to meet the building code requirements. So if our zoning bylaw amendment for cannabis goes through on the 8th, as Mr. Mayor deferred, they would have to meet the zoning requirements at that time.
So if I'm understanding correctly, right now they're allowed to be in operation even though they're in violation. So that's kind of my question.
So they're not technically allowed, but prosecutions under the Building Code Act are not deemed as emergency. And unfortunately, the court systems are backed up 24 months. So even getting a court date would be at least 2 years out. And so it kind of ties our hands until either they comply or we follow through with the prosecution.
But in the meantime, they're allowed to operate risk-free?
I don't know if you say that risk-free, but they do have a legal license through Health Canada, so the OPP cannot shut them down. And as a municipality, we are not able to go on the property and shut them down without a court order.
But what about the Ministry of Environment?
I'm not sure what their grounds are. It's Health Canada that regulates the cannabis operations. I'm not sure that.
Odor complaint. Sorry, continue.
Yep. If you have an odor complaint, you can definitely file that with the Ministry of Environment and they will investigate. As for the operations, I don't know that they can actually shut it down. They can order them to comply with odor mitigation. But I don't think they have the authority to shut them down.
So what is the ramifications if they don't comply with the proper ventilation or even the zoning. You're saying they still have 2 years where they can continue their, their operation, and then they can just be finished with it and leave. So in
Yeah,
essence, they
yeah.
have no consequences or ramifications.
Unfortunately, the pandemic kind of put us in a tough spot where the courts are flooded with other emergency files, and a lot of the municipal contraventions are being pushed aside.
So there's no recourse. I don't understand how for us and paying taxpayer money, how the inconvenience. And again, I mean, if it's a matter of just putting in the proper ventilation system so that the odor isn't affecting your immediate neighbors, and it is. It's a quite a large neighborhood area that they are affecting, where we can't even be in our backyards or have our windows open because of the odor. So, and that's our entire neighborhood. So,
Yeah,
and this is also during a pandemic where we can't go out other places.
Right. Yeah, I understand your.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, it just kind of seems like it's a major loophole here. So how are other communities, and because my understanding is this is actually that Health Canada loophole is occurring in many other small townships since the cannabis has been made legal. So how are they dealing with this to sort of close those loopholes so that, legitimate companies that want to come in and do the proper thing and handle the proper controls can function, provide, income or money to townships, but also not infringe upon the rights of the local community?
Yeah, it's definitely happening throughout Ontario. A lot of municipalities are in the same situation where the courts are suspended for non-emergency cases. I know for us, we have reached out to Eric Duncan, our MPP, as well as Jim McDonnell, to try and have them speak on our behalf. I think they're even having difficulty with trying to open a line of communication with Health Canada as well.
Okay, so just one last question then, just to kind of put out to everybody, and maybe we can all kind of get, proactive about this, is what are we as a community going to do about this so that we don't have companies that are coming in and taking advantage of us? Again, like if they can provide the proper permits and protocols and odor controls, and not be, having criminal activities such as an Arena Road, what's our recourse as both you as a council and us as, local homeowners to work together and make it so that this works for everybody? That's more what I want to know.
Just before Mr. Mayor takes over on that question, I will say that's why we're introducing the cannabis regulations to our zoning bylaws. Previously, we have nothing, and without anything in our municipal bylaws, we can't enforce. I can enforce under the Building Code Act, but that's only if they modify the buildings themselves. But yeah, I'll pass that over to Mr. Mayor to be able to respond.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Joanne, I did give you a lot of liberty in that, but I will address your question first and then I will go on. This is South Dundas's attempt to try to regulate what we can regulate within the cannabis industry. It may not satisfy everyone, and I understand your concerns. We feel that this is an attempt by us and others, because we didn't mirror it by others or from others, that asking processing facilities to use odor control is something that would hopefully address the odor issue. Till we pass this bylaw, then there's no way we can do so. Health Canada has given a lot of liberty to those who do get licenses to do what they need to do. It's just that I wouldn't call it the Wild West yet, but this is our attempt to rein it in a little bit within the jurisdiction we have, which is zoning strictly. We don't control odors. That's an MOE issue. We don't control, we do enact the Building Code Act, but that is an act for the provincial government also. So we as council thought this was a good first step to see where we had to go to hopefully deal with some of the concerns. As I said, we can't deal with them all. And I think if you, and I know that our local MP has heard a lot of flack on this, and he is doing his best. He's on the other side of the house. That doesn't help. No disrespect to that, but it was the another party that brought this in. So it's just a matter of how they're going to allow it to continue on. But as I said, this is our attempt to get regulating through zoning to see where these places can be. I will remind you, and this, that property that facility is on is an industrial type property. The odors we need to deal with. I understand that. So I know that may not answer your question, but we're doing our best, and we're doing what we can to deal with it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a good start. And as I said, it's more sort of what we can do, both the council and, as our responsibilities as homeowners in terms of where we can access and even assist you guys if we need to be reaching out to the Ministry of the Environmental Ministry of Health Canada. I mean, if that also helps your cause, then we can work together and hopefully address some of these issues. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. So I will ask any of those further comments that, as I said, this is not a debate. I would like you to address your concerns with the proposed bylaw. If there's holes in it, tell us the holes that we can fix. If it's not liberal enough, you can obviously say that too. But you've heard enough now of what we cannot do. So my request to those who want to comment to please focus on the bylaw itself, and if there's suggestions we can do within the Planning Act, then we can at least look at them. So Deputy Clerk Robert, next please.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds. Next on the list is Chris Federley. Chris, please unmute your mic and submit your comments to council.
Hi, it's Chris Federley. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Chris. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity there to raise our concerns with this facility. I guess being that we can't really rectify anything in regards to the odor tonight, my question would be with the building, if it's not set back the 300 meters that you discussed, what's the, like, can they apply for a variance for the building, or what is this recourse for that?
Yep. Thank you. I'd have to apply either for a zoning bylaw amendment or for a variance to reduce that setback. And in order for it, from a planning perspective, to provide support for that, they would need to demonstrate how reducing that setback, they're still able to mitigate odor and any additional potential adverse impacts from the production or processing facility. So whether that is increased landscaping to reduce those effects, or and more having that air treatment control that's certified, different elements like that they could do to reduce the impact. But that would need to be up to the proponent to demonstrate that they're able to provide a facility with little adverse impacts to the surrounding areas with a reduced setback. And if they do go through a Planning Act approval, so again, the zoning bylaw amendment or the minor variance, those are public processes. Notices will be provided to the public to provide comment, and a public meeting such as this one will be held.
Okay, thank you. I guess my last question would be in regards to the land that we're paying taxes on, and with the odor affecting it, like the value of our homes in the area. Is this something that's that we'd have to go to impact about, or is this something that you guys would look at, or do you take that into consideration?
I am not a tax expert, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I don't believe it would, from my understanding. I don't think that it does impact, but again, I'm no expert, and that's really not for me to comment on.
Okay.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Hi. Your best avenue is to contact Ministry of Environment just to let them know of the concerns, and I would suggest that anyone with those concerns reach out to them as well. They're more apt to investigate with more concerned citizens reaching out to them. As for MPAC and the assessment, unfortunately, they don't do an assessment on odor mitigation in the surrounding areas, so I don't believe that would affect your taxes, unfortunately.
Okay. I guess lastly, I do have one more question. We keep hearing about this production and processing facility. Is this a place that they're going to bring additional cannabis products in and process it there at that facility? Would it be expanding as to more than just growing plants, or do we have any idea what's going to take place?
Yeah, so currently they're just growing in the building. They haven't proposed any production as of yet. If they were to do that, that would be considered another change of use under the Building Code Act, and they would have to meet the requirements, again, of the building code and of the zoning bylaw of that date.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I can say the production uses are a lot more stringent than growing operations under the building code. It increases the risk value of the buildings themselves.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Deputy Clerk, next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bevels. Next on our list is Douglas Culver. Douglas, please unmute your mic and submit your comments to council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've just got a couple comments tonight, and I'll assume you can hear me.
We can, yep.
I've met some of the councilors before. Just a quick background of myself. I'm a retired RCMP member that spent most of his career in drug enforcement. I also worked in the cannabis industry after leaving the RCMP. I think what you guys have developed is a terrific first step in trying to control some of this. I think you've got it well in hand. I don't see that there is much more you can probably do as a municipality. The regulatory body in this, of course, is Health Canada. Health Canada has an inspectorate in place that goes out and will routinely inspect these facilities, either randomly or by request. That may be something that the municipality wants to look at. I'm not all that familiar with the facility on Flag Road. I do know if there's strong orders emanating from that, it's a violation of their license under the regulations imposed by Health Canada. And they should probably be made aware of that either by, I would say, the residents of the municipality itself. It's concerning to me that you guys are already dealing with this company in regards to building permits. It's just in the line of work I've been in. It sends up a lot of red flags right off the bat that they're not even following some of the municipal building codes and building permits. But I would say probably the best advocate in all this is going to be Health Canada and tapping into their inspectorate. I realized the one up on Rowena Road was initially licensed as a medical marijuana facility. It's a fairly across Canada that a lot of these medical marijuana facilities will obtain a license from Health Canada and then start growing more than the license is listed for. The licenses are very specific to the activity that's being conducted on site, the address of the site, and the production amounts that they're allowed to have. And I know last summer, not just with Rowena Road, but across the province of Ontario, the OPP had a terrible time trying to crack down on a lot of these smaller medical marijuana growing facilities that were growing in excess of their licensing. Like I said, I think the municipality is doing pretty well all they can do with the tools you have at hand. And a lot of it, I think, is going to be reaching out routinely to the partners, the Ministry of the Environment, and specifically Health Canada, who is the regulatory body in all this. If there's violations or suspected violations taking place, the first phone call should probably be to Health Canada. And as I said, I think that's about all I've got to say. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job on this and trying to stem this from going any further than it has been. I realize your hands are tied in a lot of this, but I'm actually quite impressed with what you guys are putting in place. And that would be the end of my comments.
Okay, thanks, Douglas. Next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds. Janine Jennings is next. Janine, please unmute your mic and submit your comments to council.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there, we can hear you.
I don't necessarily have any comments. I just I wanted to be part of it and hear what's going on and just get a better understanding of it. So I don't have a comment per se.
Okay, thank you.
Do I remute or do you do that?
Thank you. Next, please.
Next on our list is Leslie McCann. Leslie, please unmute your mic and submit your comments to council.
Good evening. My name is Leslie McCann. I live in a house right across the road from the County Road 2 and Flag Road facility. So I get what you're saying about the odor. I'm going to put MOE and Health Canada on dial. That's one takeaway from tonight. So I'm going to dwell on that. But as a so-called business in our township, it took a while for us to realize even any activity going on across the road from us. Living in the country, first we thought it was scumps until we realized that this were sticking around for quite a while. And then we saw a little bit of activity, maybe regarding some construction and the exhaust on the exterior of the building, and kind of put two and two together. If this is a business, why don't they have signs? Why don't they a little bit more often? Take care of the building a little bit better. There's not a lot of activity around. What activity does go on is sketchy at best. They've got a prime location, great access to the water. I expect if I were a criminal, I think I would utilize that to the best of my ability. I just think there should be some considerations in the bylaws that you're creating for signage, upkeep, contribute to the society in which your business is existing. Hire some local townfolk make yourself like don't hide in the building. Make yourself be a proud business owner. So those are some things that I think the township might be able to fit into their zoning bylaws, as opposed to the other things that have been mentioned that might be better handled by the Ministry of the Environment and Health Canada.
Thank you, Leslie. We'll take your concerns to task. Some of that might be property standards, but one of the challenges we would have is, a business can open up and be a bit under the radar if that's what they want to be, and we have to eventually catch them, and which we did eventually. So
yes, yep. So hopefully we can go ahead and get these bylaws passed and in place before they get their building permit.
Okay, anything else?
That's it from us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bywells. That completes the list.
Okay, anything further from members of council concerning this zoning bylaw amendment? Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Thanks, Mayor Bywells. I just wanted to add that on top of our residents, not just for the properties that we mentioned, but the calling of Health Canada, the calling of MOE, but also the calling of the OPP. I sat in on a call with the federal government, and they were talking about the fact that just because the OPP isn't present with some of these, because some of them are legit and some of them aren't, doesn't mean that they don't want to know about it, and doesn't mean that they're not investigating. So sometimes they would not know. I think that's pretty much what happened back on Rowena. They were being watched for a really long time, and all this stuff does take time. So I appreciated everybody's comments, and I just, like I said, I like the fact that there seems to be a partnership, and hopefully folks will call the MOE about the odor, and potentially that can be rectified at the provincial level. Thank you.
Anything further? I will make this comment. I'd like to thank everyone who made comments tonight. I know that I hate to be site specific because it could be anywhere in South Dundas, but certainly the one at Flanagan 2 is raised concerns. As much as it's on industrial property, they still have to be fair neighbors to those who still lived around them. And after listening to our chief building official, we may move up the date to our next meeting, which is actually next week on the 22nd. So we'll see. We'll talk with staff, and if we can put it through quick enough, then we will do so. So with that, we'll move on to our next zoning bylaw amendment concerning short-term rentals and how they would be regulated in South Dundas. So back to Aaron, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to pull up my notes. The zoning bylaw amendment is to explicitly address short-term rentals through the zoning bylaw. This will be done by adding a definition for short-term rentals requiring 1 parking space per short-term rental unit, implementing a short-term rental section in the general provisions of the bylaw, which will include specific provisions for this use. And this notes that they will be permitted in any zone that permits a dwelling, and that the dwelling that contains the short-term rental unit conform to the requirements of that particular zone. That a barrier containing any combination of plant material, landscape berm, or fencing that's a minimum of 1 meter in height be provided along the abutting property lines, and that development in relation to the establishment of a short-term rental be subject to site plan control. As with cannabis, we did receive a number of comments since the report has been finalized and submitted to council. So again, I'm just going to go over a few of those comments and provide some responses to those. We've received a number of objections to this zoning bylaw amendment, specifically that by regulating short-term rentals, we are discouraging economic development. 3 of these comments did note that limiting short-term rentals in the rural community is inappropriate and that the bylaw should be dismissed. They note that short-term rentals bring economic benefit to the community and provide respite to visitors by coming into the rural landscape. So again, in response, the intention is just to provide the municipality with some provisions to help regulate the development of short-term rentals to ensure that there are proper standards that are being met and that these are being located in appropriate areas. We did receive a number of comments also in support of short-term rentals. These also did include some suggestions of things that can be added to the zoning bylaw amendment. So one of these comments suggests that the municipality consider collecting a 4% short-term rental tax. This is done in other municipalities such as Toronto to help from driving up municipal taxes. This is something that cannot be done through the zoning bylaws. We are strictly regulating the use of land, but for council to consider it in other areas. There was one comment that suggests that short-term rentals only be permitted in the principal residence of an owner to ensure that they have more responsibility and commitment to how the short-term rental unit is being used. This will be acknowledged more so, I would say, in the licensing piece. So this short-term rental, we are presenting a zoning bylaw amendment to regulate them through land use and providing provisions for how the land is developed. There is a licensing piece that's going along with the short-term rental zoning, which addresses various types of short-term rentals and provides other provisions. So I'm not sure if that's being addressed in it, but that's something discussed. And then also including provisions such as limiting the number of rooms in short-term rentals, the amount of people per room when you're considering the occupancy, limiting the number of nights. Again, those are all pieces that would be addressed through the licensing piece and not through the zoning bylaw amendment itself. We did receive one comment regarding the impact on a trailer park. If as individuals, some individuals rent out their trailers. So the way that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is written is that it's any thing that would be considered a dwelling unit. So a mobile home is considered a dwelling unit, but a trailer, a recreational trailer, there are other provisions for that, and it would not be considered a dwelling unit. So they would not be permitted to have the short-term rental. And then we did receive one comment about the fence height of 1 meter being below standard for protection and privacy, and they do suggest the 2 meter height. The intention of the 1 meter in height is strictly to provide a boundary for the visitors to see this is the property that you're supposed to be on and not another one. But again, the 2 meter height is something that can be considered. So I'm going to pass it back to council.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And as Aaron has alluded to, this is only step 1 of potential regulating of short-term rentals. Licensing is another concern afterwards, which regulates a lot of other things, but this is more land use, looking at land use with short-term rentals. So please stay focused on that. When we do the licensing, if this passes and we do licensing, if we decide to do so, and I do believe there is a flavor for that because of safety concerns, and that'll be another debate at council, and there will be an opportunity to bring comments to council at that time. It won't be a public meeting. It will be strictly a council meeting at that time. So turn it over to Deputy Mayor Gardner for anything.
Thanks, Byveld. We had a pretty at our October 8th meeting where we discussed this about this particular bylaw. I am going under the guise of safety and enjoyment, but I am also somebody who is working fairly hard on tourism and economic development in the area. I am a fan of Airbnbs when they're run properly, and we do have an accommodations gap in South Dundas if we are attracting folks to come and visit. So I think the the bylaw is there to protect and to regulate so it doesn't get out of hand. I did read some of the comments. In my mind, I think that it's important for folks to recognize, as was with what the cannabis discussion, what municipalities can and cannot do, and what the police are for, and what our bylaw enforcement officers can do. In reading the comments, Aaron, you mentioned it about, you know, comparisons to Toronto and that type of thing. And as the mayor mentioned, in this thing, we're at the beginning of it. So in my mind, I'm interested to hear what the folks have to say, and I will like to comment after I hear everyone.
Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, myself, I think this bylaw is going to be a start. I'm not against the Airbnbs, and it's bringing in more income if run properly. Like Deputy Mayor Gardner said about, there's a lot of stuff that's out of our hands, like complaints about noise and speed and that, and like there's only so much we can do. But it's something I would like to, I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from doing it. If everyone follows the rules, I'm sure it'll work out good. And that's the reason this bylaw, we're just at the starting of it, to make sure the utmost thing is the safety of the people that actually rent in these units. So, and this gives us one step to go in, that we can make sure things are up as fire codes and stuff like that, to make sure everything's on the up and up. And like I said, at the end of the day, I think it's bringing people to our community, which will be spending money. So it's a win-win situation. And like the mayor said, licensing will be another thing, which I think it should be a license fee for stuff like this. It's like any other revenue, like there's licenses for everything. So I think if run right, everything should go as planned, hopefully. And this bylaw is just the beginning. And I'd like to hear the comments of the people and maybe come back. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Lewis.
I do believe the bylaw is a starting point. I really don't have much against Airbnb, but I know where the people are coming from, so I'll listen to their comments, and I guess whenever it comes to passing the bylaw, we'll go from there. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
No, I don't think I can add much to what has already been said. I think this is a rental opportunity to bring, for, short-term business stays and tourism. I guess, if you will, Aaron, or maybe Nicole, you can address this, and I have brought this up before, and maybe I'm getting the next one we're doing confused a little bit, I guess. As far as the septic on private septic, would that have to be approved or passed before under this bylaw to allow a short-term rental? If you're going from, say, 2 people in a house to, rooms. Would the septic be inspected on this as well as the accessory dwellings?
Yeah, I can speak to that, Councillor Mellon.
Please.
So the septics would come into effect when the person wants to renovate the dwelling unit to have an accommodation in it. Ideally, if they have a 3-bedroom unit and they want to rent out 2 bedrooms, it's still a 3-bedroom unit. So that 3 bedrooms is accommodated in the existing septic system. It would really affect it if they added fixture units in the basement. So if they added another bedroom and bathroom in the basement, that changes the septic review, and that's when we would have to address it under the proposed licensing bylaw that will be coming in the future to council if council wishes to proceed that way.
Thank you, Nicole. And I think that's one thing we got to keep in mind, that, the areas that we might be of concern will be addressed when we get around to that portion of this piece of legislation. So I don't have a problem with it. Some of the comments, I'll listen to some of the comments, but as far as what we have jurisdiction over and what the police have, what should be police matters. We have to keep that all in mind, where somebody is breaking the law by doing whatever. They're breaking the law, and that has to be dealt with through the police.
Okay, so now it is time for public comments. I'll turn it back over to Deputy Clerk Robert to go through this.
Thank you, Mayor Byveld. First on our list, speaking to the short-term rentals, is Kylie Hansen. Kylie, could you please unmute your mic and submit your comments to council? Kylie, are you there?
Oh, there we go. Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Kylie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Kylie Hansen. I am one of the owners of Oneida Grand. As you may know, we are investing in the area into hospitality and tourism, and by extension, accommodation. We do have some very big plans, and one of our next moves is going into short-term rentals and Airbnb. So I am really happy to hear that most people are in favor of it, and I'm all for licensing and business registration and regulation around the issues. And I just wanted to point out that Airbnb, for example, if hosts are using the site, they require people to follow rules and regulations. So I think that that's in our favor as well. I like the idea of there being some certain standards for the community, because the way that people visit and the experience that they have here, that really does show what our community is all about. I did want to point out too that with short-term rentals, sometimes there may be a problematic guest. And as mentioned, that should be a situation where the police should be involved. And hopefully those situations are far and few between, and some certain bylaws could be helpful, such as like noise regulations, which I would imagine are probably somewhat already in place just for being courteous in a neighborhood, even if you are a long-term renter or an owner. So I'm definitely in favor of short-term rentals, and I hope that the licensing process is accessible to people and encourages small business. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Kylie. Next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Byveld. Next on our list is Tiffany Tardif. Tiffany, if you could unmute your mic and submit your comments to council. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
We can, Tiffany. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tiffany Tardif. I just wanted to speak on behalf of Airbnb that has, I guess, ruffled some feathers, I should say, in the neighborhood. The accusations that are being said of the clubhouse that used to be the golf house is now an Airbnb are somewhat false. And it's sad because, you know, some of these rules and people who are opposed to the Airbnb short-term rentals that you know, can sway people's opinions when things are just rumored. So I am for short-term rental. I am a cleaner. I have my own company in cleaning, and this provides income for me as a local cleaner, and I can take more clients. So that's all I had to say. I am pro rentals, short-term Airbnb.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds. Next on our list is Sherry Byvelds. Sherry, please unmute your mic and present your comments to council. Thank you.
Hi, Sherry Byvelds, 59 Fifth Street East in Morrisburg. Can you hear me?
We can, yep, thank you.
Oh, okay. So good evening, council, staff, and fellow constituents. Some of what I might want to say is redundant, but I prepared a statement, so I'm just going to read it. The recent concerns brought forth regarding short-term rentals in South Dundas by Tim Castle and most recently by Christina Poitres on the Facebook group What's on Iroquois seem centered around the outright stopping of quote-unquote party houses and issues such as not following COVID rules, visitors from red zones, drag racing, threatening locals, loud music, 2 a.m. fireworks, and littering. And I would kindly urge Council to accept the recommendations in the action report number 2021-2, perhaps with the exception of the 1-meter fence, which, you know, could be examined on a case-by-case basis as not all properties require it, and to guide the complainants to contact the proper authorities with respect to broken bylaws or medical orders. And I strongly believe that tourism is something that we should be encouraged in South Dundas, especially during this difficult economic time. So that was pretty much my statement, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sherry. Next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds. Next on our list is Ann Union. Ann, please unmute your mic and submit your comments to council.
Hello, my name is Ann Nguyen. Can everyone hear me?
We can, yep.
I'm a co-owner of the 100930 Golf Club. So what I'm going to say is a little bit redundant too, but I prepared a statement, so I'm going to read it. So I just want to give you a little background on us. We are 3 couples in our 30s who own this property together as our vacation home with the intention of sharing the cost. We also rent out the property on days we are not there to cover the cost. As you know, this property, the tax alone is almost $11,000 annually. Since we took possession of the property in the summer of 2020, we have had great relationship with all our neighbors, with the exception of one. Perhaps this is where a majority of the complaints have originated from. I want to clear the misconception that we are a party house and that we do not care for the neighborhood or community. We always try our best to filter out disruptive guests and try to make the property available to families with children. We ask guests to read all of our house rules carefully before booking. We impose a penalty fee to ensure our guests adhere to the rules and policy. One of our rules is strictly no parties and loud music after 10 p.m. We diligently screen out potential bad guests by not accepting last-minute reservation or profile with bad reviews or no reviews at all. We ask all our guests to send in their IDs. This deteriorates party goers from booking. Our way of screening guests has been successful, and thus far, we have not had a bad booking. Since the lockdown began on December 26th, we have not rented out our house to anyone. We are law-abiding citizens and understand the reason behind the lockdown, and 100% want to do our part to protect lives. All of the bookings were canceled after the lockdown. Prior to the lockdown, we asked guests to bring all their grocery and necessity and to avoid going to local store if possible. We respect the community and absolutely do not want to disturb our neighbors or cause any nuisance. I've already sent in my written recommendation for short-term rental amendments. As owners and residents still want the flexibility of renting out their homes, whether they are on vacation or want to rent out a room in their home to help out with the mortgage, but doing so in a manner that do not disrupt other residents. We recommend the city to implement a minimum 2 days rental. This will discourage party goers from booking because majority of the party booking are last minute and only for one night. We recommend the city to implement license registration and charge a small annual license fee, as done so in other cities like Vancouver. This way, the city has control and knows which property is doing short-term rental. The extra licensing fee also provides extra revenue to the city. I would like to amend the parking requirements. I believe one parking space per guest room should be amended to 1 parking space per 2 guest rooms, as often families would choose Airbnb type of rentals over hotels because it's cheaper and has more space. A family of 3 to 4 would travel in 1 car and typically rent a minimum 2-bedroom unit. So that is my statement. And later, I think Clarissa William, our other co-owner, will comment on the accusation that was put front about us. And that's all I have to say. Hello?
Okay, thank you, Ann. I will turn it over to Deputy Clerk again, please.
Thank you, Mayor Buvelds. Next on our list is Tim Castle. Tim, please unmute your mic and make your comments to council, please.
Hello, hope you can hear me.
We can, yep, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. This opportunity is very special and dear to my heart. And for full disclosure, I have no financial interest or gain in speaking here tonight. So this is not selfish, what I am talking about tonight. Unlike others who obviously have talked, which do have a financial gain, my concerns are about the safety of the children and the well-being of our community. I've lived in South Dundas for 64 years, and I care deeply about it. I'm hoping Council will clarify this process of amending bylaws, because I wrote a half a dozen emails to the mayor and councillors regarding the safety of children and grandchildren in our neighborhood. Let me ask you this, is there anything more important than the safety of children? I don't think so. During the committee as a whole, not once was this issue addressed. I find that very disappointing. Also, how is it that the staff report does not mention our children's safety? I have submitted a written comment as well outlining the major points of the Toronto bylaw adopted to protect that community. And I ask Council to read it and adopt it. This bylaw protects their community. Why shouldn't we use it? It was free. I got permission from the city for our people to use it. I just don't understand why we just can't adopt a bylaw that does and is effective. Also, if Council is to adopt a flawed bylaw, would this not leave us open to lawsuits and legal actions? I hope Council thinks long and hard about protecting our community with a full and comprehensive bylaw. I hope Council will also contact the OPP for comments on flawed bylaws such as during the COVID lockdown. We're all supposed to stay at home. There's at least a dozen different cars, outsiders, not from our community, coming into our community. I find that despicable. There has already been comments, I believe, in regards to licensing. Yes, it has to be licensed. That's the only way we can control our community and control what is happening here. And as for those people that comment about what was said, what happened, I am a member of this community. I'm a business person. These things did happen. There was drag racing, and these people are from outside our community, and they are outsiders. They can come in if they're going to behave, but if they're not going to behave, they shouldn't be allowed in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, please.
Thank you, Mayor Buvelds. We do have one additional caller who joined the meeting late. So if you bear with me for 1 second, I'll try to get some information from them. There is a caller with the last 2 digits of their phone number of 53. If you have any public comments, could you please submit them now if it's for this public meeting? Okay, Mayor Barvelds, I think they're just here to listen, so I think that completes all the public comments for this file as well.
Okay, thank you. Last round for council, Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Hello?
Oh,
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Right now,
Oh, hi. It's me, Anne, again. Can I make a comment?
short one, you've already had yours. I don't want to get into debate because I know it could get into that. So if it's specific to the bylaw, yes.
Okay, that's fine then.
Okay, thank you. I think that concludes all participants for this public meeting, Mayor Barvelds.
Okay, so with that, I will go around council one more time and then we'll move on. Deputy Mayor Gardner, please.
thanks, Mayor Byveld. I've listened to the comments. I am a user of B&Bs. I stated that in the committee of the whole. I actually did do a little research and looked up some of the places where, or the one place where some of the comments were directed to. And I'm quite impressed with the rules and regulations that they have. As a renter of Airbnb, it's a pretty comprehensive list of what folks that go there can and cannot do. So kudos to the owner. I have an 8-year-old daughter, so I do take safety of children to the utmost. And one comment I will say about the Iroquois clubhouse, they actually have a map on where it's safe to swim. And on part of the thing, they talk about the safety of the kids that aren't strong swimmers. And I've actually never seen that before on an Airbnb where they've taken the additional step. To one of the comments about the Airbnb, they do regulate. There's one of the reasons why the Airbnb folks are deemed as super hosts when they get feedback and they get a rating. And I can tell you that as somebody that uses Airbnbs, I only gravitate to places that have the super host status. I actually won't go to an Airbnb that doesn't have that status. So I think this is a good start. I don't think we're going to be able to please everyone. I think that if we're looking for, or I'm looking for folks that are going to be running Airbnbs that do due diligence. You're always going to have the bad apples at some point in time. And I would encourage that as a police matter. When talking about the safety of the kids, I would not call the municipality. I would call the OPP and have a discussion with the police officers. And I think that this is a good start. And to be honest with you, as somebody with the tourism and economic development, I'm excited that people are wanting to invest in South Dundas. And I'm excited that, young couples in their 30s are purchasing a property that they use as a cottage thing and that they've chosen South Dundas. So I'm really hoping that we can work together as a community and welcome folks in and work together to iron out any of the concerns. But I would really caution an adversarial relationship. I really like the investment, and Iroquois is welcoming, a fabulous, we heard one of the first speakers, a fabulous opportunity, and to see where that's going to go. So never wanted to quash, entrepreneurial spirit, if you will, and really looking forward to welcoming folks to our community in a safe fashion. But some of these, if you have the opportunity, just load the app up and you can search South Dundas, and it's quite neat how many super hosts we actually do have. So those are my comments. Thanks, Mayor Byveld.
Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I can't really add much to Deputy Gardner, summed a lot of it up. We know we're not going to make everyone happy. I think at the end of the day, there's support that people want these places. First, myself, I've never used a bed and breakfast or Airbnb, but going by what Deputy Mayor said, like I'm sure Ann's doing their due diligence. But at the end of the day, the only comment I would say about on the bylaw that the fence would be higher than a meter, like put up to the 5 or 6 feet, if it's going to create a better atmosphere for some people. So other than that, Mayor, it's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Council Lewis.
I think we're off to a good start with this this bylaw, and I will agree with my colleague, Councillor Wells. I think maybe the fence should be a little more than 1 meter. But I listened to all the comments, and there seem to be a lot of happy people with the Airbnb. So I guess we'll make our decision on March 8th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Mellon.
No, thank you, Mayor Barvels. I've heard the comments and the positive feedback and people that have used these and continue to use them, and I think it's a great, opportunity in South Dundas if they're managed and ran properly through proper zoning and proper licensing and with the proper, guidance by the municipality, what we're requiring. And I think the owners are responsible and realize that. And nobody wants to endanger children. But like I said at my opening statement, there's issues that need to be dealt with by the police. It doesn't matter if it's in a short-term rental or it's just in somebody's house party that, they stop in for the night. Those issues have to be addressed through the proper channels, and those proper channels are, through the OPP, and those are the type of things that we're looking at. I don't think we want to get into a situation where you're almost in a gated community to try and control what people are coming into your community. I think this is great for South Dundas and a great opportunity to attract people either on tourism or short-term business meetings or trips or whatever the case may be.
I understand there's one more speaker that would like to speak to this, so Deputy Clerk.
Just one moment. We are going to have to get her set up with the system. So if there's further discussion, I don't know if council has any further discussion while I get that set up, or if you wanted to circle back to that.
Well, I'll make my comments. I think, there were some genuine concerns alleged that we needed to regulate short-term rentals, and a lot of municipalities have gone ahead and done so, mainly because they were getting overwhelmed. Are we getting overwhelmed? I don't see that yet, and I agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner. We want to be a welcoming community, but we want to do it right. So that, this is step one of making sure they're in the right places. This is land use strictly. And how that is all regulated along with the fence and the parking. The other part will come with licensing, and that will be discussed at another council meeting. However, I will address a few other things that I seen throughout the comments, and there were a lot of comments from a lot of people on this file, not only those who are participating tonight, but those who actually sent their comments via written email to council. There's a sense of racism in some of these comments, and I, as mayor of South Dundas, are not happy with that. We need to be a welcoming community, whether you are black, brown, white, yellow, whatever. We all live in the same world, and we have to recognize that. And those who come and share in our wealth called South Dundas need to be welcomed at all times. So I want every resident of South Dundas to do that and respect all those who come to South Dundas. Deputy Clerk, are we ready yet?
is Tim Castle. Hello?
Sorry, Tim, you had your say.
Well, you
I'm just
brought up
waiting
the
for the
word
additional.
racism, and it was implied to me. So why can't I comment on it? Hello?
Sorry, Mayor Barefeld, we had a bit of interference there. I've
Yeah.
addressed the issue.
Okay, we're just waiting for that last caller, so.
Okay. Clarissa, if you are on, please hit *6 and you can unmute yourself and submit your comments.
Hello? This is
Hi
Tim
there. My name's
Castle.
Clarissa Williams. Can everyone hear me?
We
Yes,
can,
we
yep.
can.
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm also part owner of the clubhouse, and we're really excited to be part of the community, and we really want to foster positive relationships and contribute to economic growth and development. And I just wanted to introduce ourselves. We're very reasonable and friendly people, and we adjust to feedback from our neighbors, especially when it's delivered in a respectful and direct way. And I just want to say that we've been very proactive in trying to foster positive relationships. And yeah, I hope this can continue, and we're always open to feedback. So I just wanted to say hello. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. And that brings this piece of the public meeting to a close. We thank you for all your comments, and we will take all of them under consideration. We may also move this one up, as I mentioned the last time, due to timing considerations to February 22nd. So if you have anything further to bring to staff or council, please have those in by this Thursday, please. Moving on to zoning bylaw amendment concerning signs. Erin?
Thank you. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to update the zoning provisions for signs for the municipality South Dundas. Additionally, the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry did update their sign provisions, most notably with regards to provisions regarding illuminated signs. So this amendment does reflect those changes as well. The proposed amendment, I'm just pulling up my notes, apologies, does update the existing definition for a sign to note that it does apply for signs on private property. As well, it updates section 3.33 signs with the following provisions. So it does require that a permit be obtained from the chief building official or appropriate agency to erect or install a sign that's considered a structure. It permits signs in specific zones unless it's otherwise stated in the zoning bylaw. Those are outlined in the proposed amendment. It does state that signs be considered an accessory use and be advertising for the use found on lands upon which it is located, subject to the provisions of section 3.1 accessory uses of the bylaw unless otherwise stated. That illuminated signs outside of a building direct the illumination away from adjoining properties and adjacent streets, that obsolete signs which no longer advertise a bona fide business conducted or product sold shall not be permitted, and then where these provisions are inconsistent with regulations respecting signs on a near county road made and administered by the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, or public highways made or administered by the Ministry of Transportation, that the more restrictive regulation apply. So with that, I did receive 2 comments regarding this proposed amendment. One was simply a comment about an existing sign for a trailer park. So again, the provisions that were in place when that sign was erected will apply, and it will be grandfathered in. If changes are made to the sign, it will have to reflect the zoning bylaw in place at that time. An additional comment received was regarding the wording for the illuminated portion. And in the bylaw, we do say adjoining properties, and it was suggested that that be changed to neighboring residential properties. And I will pass it back to council.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Gardner, any comments?
Thanks, Mayor Boyveld. I'm in support of this bylaw. I'll hear what folks have to say, but it was a reaction to a couple of instances where signage was being abused. You know, and I would encourage folks to read the bylaw. It's not meant to go after temporary signs or event signs or real estate signs. This is for the problematic signs that contribute to the sign pollution in our community. So I'm satisfied with it. I'll listen if there's any comments, but I think that this was required, and I'm happy that we move forward with it.
Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. I read the bylaw. I'm in favor of it. Like Deputy Mayor said, we're not aiming to all the small signs on the sidewalks and stuff like that. And, it was started by a sign that was granted and abused. So this will rectify stuff, hopefully, and it's just another step forward. And when we see problems happen, we're, as council, we're trying to fix it before it gets worse. So, and I'm waiting to hear the comments also, and I might come back with something. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Lewis.
No, I have no comments. I think this was a very lengthy discussion that we had. I like this proposed zoning bylaw. So no, I have no comments. Thank you. Good work, ladies.
Councilor Mellon.
No, I agree with my colleagues, what has been said, and I think between the county bylaw, if you will, and this here zoning, our zoning bylaw, I think we've covered the areas that we had issues with.
Nicole, you have any comments before we go to the public comments? Because I should have went to you first. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to mention that we did update the designated signs definition. So under the Building Code Act, it classifies large signs similar to the one on County Road 2 as a structure, and they would need to meet building code requirements as well as zoning provisions. So previously we didn't have zoning provisions for signs of this nature, and this is just pushing those through. I don't believe there was any actually public comments further than the two that Aaron received. Ethan can speak to this, but I don't think we have anyone on the call for signs.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Through you, Mayor Barvelds, we had one person registered. I don't see her on the call at the moment, so we can proceed with the meeting if you wish.
Okay, any further comments from any members of council? Seeing none, we will move on then to the zoning bylaw amendment for additional residential units. Aaron, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to explicitly replace the current provisions related to accessory apartments in order to address provincially mandated requirements to include additional residential units in the zoning bylaw. As previously discussed in 2019 through Bill 108, More Homes, More Choices, the Planning Act was amended, which does further amends the second unit framework in the Planning Act and replaces it with additional residential units. So under the Planning Act, an additional residential unit is permitted within a detached house, semi-detached house, or a row house, and then as well as within an accessory structure. We did identify through previous conversations areas of concern, which I've outlined in the report, and including the amendments. So those amendments are reflected in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, which removes the term accessory apartments from the definition sections and all other related provisions to accessory apartments. It includes a definition for additional residential units, as well as specific provisions for additional residential units, such as providing one parking space per additional dwelling unit, not requiring any restrictions for the unit size, requiring a hydrology study and terrain assessment if privately serviced, setbacks from a water body, and additional provisions which are provided in the zoning bylaw amendment. We did receive 2 comments on this proposed amendment. Again, one was just asking for a copy of the bylaw, and then we did receive 1 comment today in support of the bylaw for additional residential units.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
So as council is aware, this is, and the public should also be aware, this is a requirement that the province of Ontario has asked us to put into our zoning bylaws to enhance the housing structures within Ontario and provide for more affordable housing. As much as it probably is aimed at the bigger cities, we still need to do it, and we can still see opportunities or needs for it. So, Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Mayor Byvelds, I'm okay with it as presented.
Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with everything that's on it. The only thing I would add to it, there's one thing about not having any additional units in the floodplain, which I think I have no reason to believe that there shouldn't be additional unit. I ran into this years ago on a house that burnt in the floodplain, and it was a 2-story house at the time of 1,200 square feet, and we made the footprint a 1,200 square foot home, but a bungalow, and all the rigmarole we had to go through. It was like 2 months just to get approval by the authorities to get this all done. That's the only thing in this whole bylaw that I would say, like, I would allow units to be built in the floodplain or additional units, because I don't think there'd be any effect. But other than that, the rest of it, I'm good with everything.
You go ahead, Aaron. I could comment, but I'll let you comment first.
Okay, thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, in the zoning bylaw, development is not permitted within the floodplain. So that is not reflected in the additional residential units because already we are not permitted dwellings or any form of development within the floodplain. For buildings or structures to be permitted in the floodplain, they do have to seek approval from the Conservation Authority, and they have their own set of regulations and provisions that would regulate the development, and they would be the ones providing the permits for that. So you would need to demonstrate floodproofing and various measures, but that does come from the Conservation Authority. It's not through this zoning bylaw amendment.
Understand, Councilor Wells?
And I knew that. I just voiced my opinion, a comment that it should be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, fair enough. I will put a little bit of comment on that, Councilor Wells, because I was on the South Nation board when that occurred. That was a house on Kirker Road, I believe. Yeah, there was some significant discussion at the board level about some of the penalties that applied because because of what happened. I agree with you, though, it probably was a little bit too much of a rigmarole, but then a number of years later, we had the big flood, and that kind of proved me wrong. So unfortunately, we have to respect the floodplains and allow SNC to regulate them. Councilor Lewis.
No questions. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
No, I mean, everything that I had concerned about when we first discussed it with the private wells, the septic and the setbacks, the water beds, water bodies and the water courses, is in there. And I think that's what we're striving to do. So I don't, the flood is, I won't go on to that. That's yeah. Okay, but that's good. Thank you.
Okay, and I along council don't have any issues with the proposed regulations within our zoning bylaw. So that concludes our 4. Before we leave the public meeting, though, I'm going to ask both Aaron and Nicole if they're comfortable with putting the comments together. Any minor changes they feel should be done and then have that bylaw ready for this Monday night.
Yeah, I think with the comments that we received, it's definitely attainable to meet Monday's deadline for the council meeting.
Yep, I would agree.
Yes, Councillor Mellon.
Comment I would make, Mayor Bybels, is I agree that if they can get the four of them together, but let's try and make sure that the cannabis zoning bylaw, if we can concentrate on that one first to make sure that it's done for Monday night. If the other three are in place, that's great.
So noted. So we will.
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor Bubbles. I just want to note for the record that we received no public requests to make audio or oral statements tonight on this file.
Thank you. I missed that. So with that, that concludes it. If any further comments from any member of the public would like to be brought to the council's attention, please do so. Preferably by this Thursday, but you would have up to Monday, worst case scenario. With that, we'll call on Madam Clerk to close the meeting, please.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Wells, that the public meeting to consider zoning bylaw amendments be closed at 7:41 p.m.
You've all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. So we're going. So thanks for all those who did participate. Now I'm bypassing the bylaws and deferring them to February 22nd. On the number 6, discussion items concerning the water tower renderings. Shannon?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So back in August, September, we did bring a rendering of what we were proposing as our water towers. As we prepare to do the work with our contractor, they actually have done up some scales for our renderings. So presented to council tonight is 2 versions, version 1 and 2. I'm looking for some direction tonight from council on how they want to proceed. I will note that it will be the color of South Dundas blue. It will not be black. It would be the white with the South Dundas blue for the logo and for the writing. Just wanted council's direction on whether or not they want to go with the bolder lettering or the not as bold lettering. So I'll look for some direction from council.
Okay, thank you. So you can see the differences in the font. We'll call the font on the left 1 and the font on the left 2. Mayor Gardner.
It's funny because when I first looked at it, I thought that number 2 would be the way to go, but now I'm looking at the spacing in number 1. I do have a question though. We had talked about color previously, and I remember at that time we had it was mentioned that we went from a brown logo to a blue logo. Was there any thought given to just doing it in black, so if the colors of the logos change, it wouldn't matter? Just an off comment, because it doesn't actually look, it's plain, but it's a water tower. It's not the Statue of Liberty. Like it's just a functional, water tower. But I just, sorry, Mayor Bybels, I would go with, I don't know. Initially, the number 1 looked too Comic Sans for me, and then I kind of looked at the more standard, less I don't know, less whatever. But now I look, yeah, thanks, Brenda. Now I look at it, I don't know. I think I'm gonna go. I think I would go with number 2, but I'm just wondering if we would do it in black.
Shannon, you want to address the color, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when we discussed it back in August, September, it was to go with the South Dundas blue, but this would be the opportune time if council wants to change the direction. This is the time to get those comments into our contractors so that they can get everything ordered and everything. So
Yeah. And my intent is not to add to it, but just because the last rendering we saw, I think, was in color, correct?
Yep, correct.
And then I'm looking at it now and I'm just seeing the black and how it's just plain and simple and just, you know, so I don't care either way. I was just curious as to why not black, but yeah, I vote for number 2.
Okay, Council Wells, please.
It's, to me, it really doesn't matter. Like Deputy Mayor Gardner said, it's a water tower. But since you asked us to pick one, I got to pick one. And the only thing, like the black lettering, but I would go with our blue logo on the South Dundas. Is that what you're saying, Shannon, or was it just going to be black also?
No, I believe the conversation we had back in September was everything would be the blue. So it'd be the white background, the logo would be blue, and the lettering would be blue.
Okay. I don't know how blue would stand out, but I'm good with it. I picked number 1, and you could go with the blue logo and black lettering. It wouldn't matter to me. It's all going to be seen. I looked at the measurements of it. It's going to be seen for a distance. So, and there's room above Morrisburg and Iroquois for whatever reason if something has to be added. So, thank you.
Okay, just for council's info, there are blue lettered water towers. I do believe Winchester is that direction. So, Councilor Lewis.
Well, I hate to do this, but I gotta disagree with the deputy mayor. I love option 1, and I'd like to stay with our blue because that is South Dundas color. So I'm number 1, blue. Thank you.
A man who can make a decision. Councilor Mellon, here we go.
2, blue. There you go.
Okay, looks like the mayor gets to break the tie. Because blue is already won the one side, and the mayor's choosing number 1. He had that figured out first time he looked at it, so.
Okay.
Any further comments?
I'm good with number 1. I think that happens after 6 hours of meetings, just saying.
Okay, so blue logo and version 1, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And that would be the lettering as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so before I get the Madam Clerk to read the next motion for a closed session, I'd like to thank council so far, thank staff for their input. Thank Erin. I know she's left already, but I do appreciate all that she's done for us concerning this this evening. And thanks to the audience and those who participate in public meeting. Madam Clerk.
Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Lewis, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas proceed in camera pursuant to Section 239B of the Municipal Act 2001 concerning personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
All heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you very much for now.